My name is Jake Murray. I'm Artistic Director of Elysium Theatre Company, and I'm Director of this production of Othello. Othello was written by William Shakespeare in the early 1600s. As far as we know, probably 1603 or 1604, sometime into the first years of King James I's reign. This was the period in Shakespeare's life where he was moving away from writing comedies and moving slowly into writing tragedies. And it came in the same years as Hamlet, King Lear and Macbeth, and is regarded as one of the four great tragedies of Shakespeare. It's thought that one of the inspirations was a delegation from Morocco. The Sultan Ansar the Great, who ruled Morocco, sent a delegation of ambassadors to London to sign a treaty with the king. And for 6 months, there was a whole group of ambassadors who were Moors, moving around in London, coming to Shakespeare's theatre, and as Shakespeare, as the court playwright, may well have met them, because Shakespeare's company often played at the court for the king. This answers the question of how might Shakespeare have known black people and how he might have been inspired to write Othello. And as the leading playwright at the time, he would have been very aware that London was very abuzz with this delegation who gave the people of London an insight into other cultures and other worlds. And as a great playwright, or a playwright who wanted to get his audience, he would have wanted to make a play which grabbed that zeitgeisty moment. Out of that, we think, or it is thought, that Othello came into being. Shakespeare sets the play in Venice. When Shakespeare was writing, Italy was seen as the most exciting part of the world. It was the seat of the Renaissance. It was where all sorts of philosophy, religion, mysticism, architecture, music, poetry, everything was exploding. And Venice was seen as the forefront of this Renaissance transformation of Europe. It had a huge Jewish population, a huge African population, a big Greek population. It had imperial holdings all across the Mediterranean. In many ways, it was seen as we see America now, or we used to see America in the 60s or the 80s as the most dynamic and exciting part of the world. And Shakespeare knew that when he set his play in Venice, the audience were going to be excited to see a play set there. The interesting coincidence, or not coincidence, is that the other play that he set in Venice is The Merchant of Venice, which deals famously with Shylock, the Jew, and in Othello you have Othello the Moor. And both plays are essentially dealing with issues of race. And he chooses Venice because Venice seemed to be the most cosmopolitan part of Europe at the time. And that's why the two plays speak to each other in some interesting kind of way. They both deal with how Venetian society deals with ethnic minorities. And it's often very useful to read them both together to find out how the two plays talk to each other and how they add to our perspectives. So Othello deals with a whole array of themes. As well as race, it also deals with jealousy, famously. It deals with the military. It deals with what happens to a society when it's at war, because everything that happens in the play takes place in the context of a threat from the Turkish Empire, the Ottomans. It also deals with gender and the role of women in society. It deals with, if you want to see it in the modern terms, toxic masculinity. It deals with domestic abuse, the abuse of women. And Shakespeare deals with all of these themes with incredible insight and compassion and complexity. It also deals with mental health issues, because we see Othello almost driven mad by Iago. It deals with what we would call narcissistic personalities, sociopathic personalities, which we see in Iago, a man who resents everybody and has compassion for nobody, but is highly intelligent, knows how to appear to be everybody's best friend, but also enjoys taking people down and proving that he's superior to them. Also motivated by the slightest insult to do most terrible things. So one of the things that's extraordinary about the play is how topical it is now. The difference between Othello and Merchant of Venice is that Shylock is an outsider throughout and is treated to abuse throughout. In Othello, ostensibly at the beginning, Othello is admired and loved and integrated into the society and greatly appreciated. But as the play moves on, we see how lurking in that society is a very nasty, vicious racism, like a virus, which conspires to bring him down. That's one of the reasons why we did it this year. Because these themes are still very alive to us now. The biggest challenge of doing any Shakespeare is that they're vast. You're dealing with a huge canvas of characters, sometimes up to 14, 15 different characters, all of whom need to be as vivid as anybody else. You're dealing with the language, which you have to make the actors understand and help them to deliver in such a way that everybody understands it. You've got to tell the story, but you've also got to get inside the heads of every single character in the play. You've got to make it live, you've got to make it embodied, you've got to make it passionate, you've got to make it clear. And Shakespeare, because he wrote on such a massive scale, psychologically and emotionally and thematically, forces you to raise your game. A note I had when I was very young by a director was that Shakespeare was a genius and you had to lift yourself up to his level rather than pull him down to you. So the experience of directing any Shakespeare, even if you love it, is exhausting, but exhilarating when it works. The joy of working with Shakespeare is they are such remarkable texts. They're incredibly moving, they go very deep, they can be very, very funny. Theatrically, they're very exciting because you have sweeping stories, epic stories, you have sword fights, you have passionate emotions, and you're most of all made to look at human nature in a way that you're not normally asked to do. I was describing the other day the experience of directing a play of Shakespeare is like dropping into a pool and thinking you know how deep it is, and then suddenly finding that it's far, far deeper than you thought. So they are challenging, but they are very exciting to do. And there's no doubt that when you make them work and you can see the audience gripped, hanging on every word, understanding what's going on, and then cheering at the end, then you really know you've achieved something.